You're busy, your calendar looks full, your days feel packed, and you're doing emails, training, work, favours, sales messages, plans, and yet there's this quiet, irritating feeling you can't shake. You still feel behind, not exhausted, not overwhelmed in a dramatic way, just behind, like you're running all day and somehow ending up in the same position and same place every night. And do you want to know the worst part is? You can't even complain about it properly, because on paper, to everybody else, you're doing fine. So let me say the one thing that no one else is going to say to you. You don't feel behind because you're doing too little. You feel behind because you're doing too much of the wrong things. Busyness without direction creates zero momentum. Let me say it again. Zero momentum. And that sentence alone is going to split the room, but I don't care. I want to say the stuff that's true that people don't like to say, because part of you wants to argue with me right now, but also want to say, I'm trying, but I am putting in the work. But if you saw my days and my responsibilities, then you'd understand. I know. I've lived that life. I still live that life to a certain extent. I remember whole phases of my life where I was constantly on the go. Gym sessions, boxing fights, plans, sales meetings, public speeches, late nights convincing myself that I was building something, yet nothing was moving. No real traction, no real self-trust, no feeling of forward motion, just activity. And here's the uncomfortable truth that I had to face. I wasn't overwhelmed, I was avoiding commitment. Because when you actually commit to something specific, you can fail at it. Busyness protects you from all of that. Busyness lets you feel productive without being accountable. If everything matters, nothing matters. And that's how you've been living your life. You wake up already reactive, already scrolling social media, already checking messages, checking emails, checking what other people need. So you tell yourself that you'll get to the important stuff later. Later becomes tomorrow. Tomorrow becomes next week. Next week becomes another month where nothing meaningful has shifted. And instead of confronting that, you just add more tasks, more ideas, more, I'll just quickly do this. That's not ambition. That's hiding. Because clarity forces honesty, and honesty forces change. So let's talk about the moments this really shows itself. On a random Tuesday night, nothing dramatic has happened that day. No crisis, no big failure. Work was okay. Gym was okay. You did what you needed to do. And yet, you still feel restless. So you scroll, you snack, you get a bag of fucking sniff, you pour a drink, you distract yourself. Not because you're weak. Because if you sit in silence for too long, you'll start hearing those thoughts that you've been doing everything you can to avoid all day. I'm busy, but nothing's moving. That thought is so dangerous, because once you admit that, you have to ask the question, what actually matters? And you avoid that question at all costs, don't you? Because it would force you to admit that half of your effort is just noise. It's not actually achieving anything. It's not pushing any meaningful needles forward. So here's something no one will tell you. Feeling behind is not caused by a lack of time. It's caused by a lack of priority. You can be busy for 12 hours a day and still avoid the one thing that would actually change your life and move your life forward in a meaningful way. Because I've worked with men who earn good money, who train hard, who show up for everybody else, but they still quietly despise themselves. And that's a painful situation to live in. Not because they're failing publicly, but because they know they're betraying their own standards privately and secretly. I think you feel like that. And the reason it hurts is because you know better. You know better. You know which actions matter, which actually create a result. You know which ones move the needle. You know which ones are just maintenance and which ones are distraction. And every day you avoid those important ones, and your nervous system's keeping score. That's why the feeling doesn't go away. That's why rest doesn't fix it. Holidays don't fix it. New plans don't fix it, because it's not tiredness. It's misalignment. You're spending energy in places that don't return any self-respect. And self-respect is the fuel of momentum. So let me put this as simply as I can put it. Momentum isn't created by doing more. It's created by doing fewer things consistently. One direction, one standard, one line that you refuse not to cross. Most men don't lack capacity. You don't lack capacity. You lack a spine because you want freedom without constraint, flexibility without commitment, options without consequences. And that sounds nice until your life starts feeling empty, because freedom without structure doesn't feel expansive. It feels hollow. When everything is optional, nothing feels meaningful. That's why disciplined men look calmer. Not because they're doing more, because they've decided what matters and they've eliminated the rest. And here's where it gets personal. You don't feel behind because you're falling short of other people. You feel behind because you're falling short of yourself. The version of you that knows what is capable of. That version of you that shows up when the pressure's on. That version of you that you occasionally get full access to. You start feeling excited, then you forget who you even exist. And that creates that mental struggle. And the more you avoid it, the louder it gets. So let me say something that's probably going to sting. Busyness is often just a sophisticated form of self-sabotage. It looks responsible, it sounds mature, it feels easily justified, but it keeps you safely average. Because as long as you're busy, you never have to test yourself fully. You never have to find out what happens if you fully commit. And commitment is scary. I get it. Trust me, I get it. Because then there's no excuse for yourself. No, I was just distracted. No, I had too much on. No, just results or lack of results. So you stay busy and you stay stuck. Because I remember times in my own life where I was trying to juggle absolutely everything, wear every hat possible, do everything, training, work, people, friends, family, plans, making money, everything. And deep down, I knew exactly what I was avoiding. That one conversation, that one habit, that one uncomfortable action. And when I decided to stop avoiding, those things actually forced me to grow. And I loved it. And every time I avoided it, I paid the price and felt like shit. Not immediately, but slowly, gradually, bit by bit, the confidence dipped, self-trust dipped, momentum disappeared. That's exactly how it works. Not with explosions, but with quiet leaks. So here's the part that most men don't want to hear. Clarity is uncomfortable at first because it removes your hiding places. Once you decide what matters, everything else just becomes a choice. And every choice has a cost. But here's what no one tells you on the other side of it all. Clarity is calming. Once you fully commit, the mental noise completely stops because your brain no longer has to juggle 10 open loops. It knows where you're going. It knows what you want to get achieved. It knows the person you want to become. And that's when momentum can truly start to build and move you forward in a meaningful way. Not because life gets easier, but because resistance becomes meaningful. You stop asking, should I do this? And start asking, is this aligned? And that one shift changes absolutely everything. So if this is landing and it feels a bit uncomfortable, but you know it's true, then good. That discomfort is information and it's pointing you to the exact area that you've been avoiding. So let me ask you something directly. What are you busy with right now that feels productive? But deep down, you know is not moving your life forward. I'll give you a second to think. And I don't want you to answer out loud or drop it in the comments. I just want you to be honest with yourself and then ask yourself the next question. What's the one thing that you keep postponing and putting off because once you start, you can't keep pretending anymore? That's the real work. Not more tasks, not more planning, not more motivation, just alignment. One direction, one commitment, one standard, you stop negotiating. That's how momentum actually begins. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly. So like I said, if this is uncomfortably accurate, comment the word blueprint or click the link in the bio and get a free copy of the Become Unfuckwithable Blueprint, which will help you eliminate self-sabotage and build that momentum again. And I'll leave this one with you. You don't need to do more. You need to stop lying to yourself about what really matters. Because the moment your actions align with your standards, that behind feeling just completely disappears and momentum replaces it. So I'll see you in the next video, but don't bother clicking on the next video if you're not going to click those links and get the free copy of the Become Unfuckwithable Blueprint. Let's go.